So, welcome back to another episode of ABH's Table Talk, sponsored by the DEIB committee. My name is Wendy Grier, and I'm the director of DEIB here at ABH. And today we're going to talk about DEI. What is it? What does it mean? Is it necessary? Why is it under attack? And has it really run its course? So today I have a panel of ABH staff here and committee members to, unpack those questions that I think a lot of people are thinking about. So before we start with our discussion, I just want to give our audience a little bit of historical information about DEIB. So what does DEIB stand for? So it stands for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So D is really diversity, meaning different people from different backgrounds come together for a common cause. The E means equity, meaning these people have access to the same resources and experiences to achieve some kind of common goal. And I means basically inclusion, that everybody with these different backgrounds and access to resources feel valued, their presence matters, and they have a voice at the table. And then the B just basically means that because I feel valued and I have a voice at the table and I have contributions that are made to an organization or a company, that I internalize that and now I feel like I belong. So hence, that's how you get DEIB. Those are the pillars of the principles of this concept. So the next question is, well, when did it start? Where did it come from? Where did it originate? So DEI principles have come out of the 1960s during the civil rights movement, in which Black Americans were demanding equality along all social institutions, such as voting, healthcare, work, education, housing, etc. And so over the years, DEI has incorporated other things such as gender and sexual identification and religion and other identities as well. So here we are, fast forward to 2024. So all of you know, we're in a very difficult political climate. There's a lot going on, and now all of a sudden DEI is in the limelight. Many companies are backing away from it. Many institutions of higher learning are starting to question it and back away. So I wanted to take this time with all of you to kind of unpack what's going on in 2024 with DEIB. So everybody ready? Let's get started. So the first question is, do you think DEIB supports reverse racism because it focused so much on diversity? What do you all think about that? Because I feel like that's what's coming up right now.
I can speak a little bit to that. My name's Andrea Davis. I do work here at ABH as a school therapist, and I'm also on the DEI committee. So for me, what I think about when I hear a question like this is really just thinking about what's the information that's being shared. I feel like sometimes we make really large blanket statements about things concerning DEIB, but it's really about getting to the nitty-gritty of it to me and figuring out what are people sharing in these spaces, right? If you just look at DEI as something that's only talking about race, then yeah, you're probably going to think something about reverse racism. But when you actually get to the understanding of what it really is and all the other identities that it encompasses, and then also, like I said, what we're sharing in those spaces, it's that information to me that counts, right? So to me, DEI does not support reverse racism, and it just supports a safe space for other people to be able to feel supported.
Can anybody explain for our audience what reverse racism is?
This is Stephanie Coldell, a therapist at Prince George's County, and I admit I had to do some research on reverse racism, and essentially the concept that I've grasped is that reverse racism is based on an anti-white sentiment. So just like feminism has been construed as female over male instead of equality all around. So I can see where people who are used to not having to share a space and then being excluded from a space, I can see how that is concerning to some people. Being excluded is not a comfortable feeling, but I know the DEIB is not exclusive in a lot of areas. So I think that this is more so based on an assumption. I don't think the heart of DEIB is based in reverse racism. I think that if it is unchecked, it could potentially lead to a venting session that is complaining for the sake of complaining, but that's just a space where people can share their grievances. I think that if maintained in a healthy way, then reverse racism can be absent from DEIB.
Great answer. I Stephanie, agree with you. I think you have to take care in what we talk about in these spaces and not just make it all about race, because DEIB encompasses so much more than race. And I like your answer. I think that I'm with you on that. I think we have to take care in how we discuss DEIB and its principles. So Mike, did you want to add to that? Anything you want to say around that issue?
Well, good morning. My name is Mike Harrison. I work for ABH in the finance accounting department. And I like to piggyback on you. To me, reverse racism is kind of defined more as using the term, whiteness, right? It's white people who assume that they are not being looked at, or they believe they're being more stereotyped for them being more white. And being called out for being white. So it's one when we say, racism is all about African Americans going through a situation or a struggle and being suppressed and looked upon or looked down. And the way it's kind of flipped on the other side where whites are saying, hold up, we are, whites matters as well. So they're trying to say, hey, don't forget about us. When in the limelight, I don't think, for me, it's, as an African American, we haven't forgot about you in a sense, because everyone goes through different walks in life and every characteristics of it. But then racism, it's more of when you look at your typical family per se, typical American, it's not the African American family being portrayed. It's always the white family, the picket fence, the big house. Granted, now here we are in 2024, things have changed, because when you look at different commercials, you see commercials now, it's a mixed race family, it's a white male, Black woman, or vice versa, with much different children. But then how does all relate to DEIB? I think DEIB is important because of the fact that when you come together, you're talking about different facts of more than just race, but different diversities. It's opening up to the broad scheme of not only Blacks and whites, but it's like you said, it talks about different religions, it talks about different facts of things of that nature, where I came up, and it's like now I have a platform where I can be heard, where I can discuss what I'm going through and what I'm dealing with in life.
Right. So I mean, it's just interesting historically how it's come along, the principles of DEIB, and 2 years ago, everybody was embracing the concepts. Companies, higher institutes of learning, everybody wanted to get on the bandwagon, because they thought, it'll just make a better company, perhaps. And now we are in 2024, as I said, it's under attack. And I'm wondering, what do you all think about, is DEIB even necessary anymore? Is it important for companies to still hold on to those concepts? I feel like personally, maybe there needs to be some tweaking done, because everybody, Blacks, whites, whatever religion, gender, everybody needs to have a seat at the table. And it's not just about race. And I think it's gotten demonized and it's gotten politicized, and it's more, it feels more about race as opposed to feeling like there's just a group of people that are different that come together and share a common cause. But, let me not go on. Let me hear from you guys. Like, what do you think about companies, institutions? Do you think the principles of DEIB are healthy ones? Do you think they're needed? What do you think?
I definitely think it's still necessary and needed in today's climate. I think it's something that will probably be needed for a very long time, if not forever. Just looking back at the history of the foundation of our country here in America, right? I think that's something that is often under debate is that, okay, well, slavery is over and racism doesn't exist anymore, right? And well, we accept the LGBTQIA community now, right? So it's like, I think that a lot of what we see today is people kind of and everybody has the right to feel that way, right? Like things like Mike was mentioning, commercials are more inclusive, right? But that doesn't mean that the underlying theme is really still dissolved, right? Like there are still policies and there are still regulations that do make it more difficult for a lot of people of other different identities that are not white heterosexual men to really feel comfortable in a workspace or in the world that we live in. And I think that that's why DEIB is still necessary. And I like how you said, Wendy, too, like maybe there are some things that could be tweaked so other people do feel comfortable, right? Because as I mentioned before, DEIB to me really is just a place where people can come to feel comfortable in their workspace. And so we don't want to exclude other people, right? We don't want to exclude those who do identify as white heterosexual men or, people that may not feel like DEIB is a fit for them. We do want everybody to feel included. And to me, it is really important because we spend a lot of our week at work, right? So it's like there has to be a space for us at work. Like this is something we do all the time. We're giving so much of ourselves and so much of our life to our work. Why don't we have a space there where we feel comfortable? So I do think that DEIB is definitely still necessary.
Great. Stephanie, do you have a thought?
Yeah, I have many thoughts, but I'll try to keep it concise. I think that
Say what's on your mind. It is okay.
I was thinking about this either earlier today or yesterday that since the internet was invented, which is the World Wide Web, it's meant to stick everyone together in a giant spider web, etc. We have grown so much in our way of empathizing with other cultures, other backgrounds. Now we get to see what life is like in other countries without going there if we have limitations in our socioeconomic status. And because of that, we are learning more about other cultures. But at the same time, we might be learning incorrectly. There's very biased views out there on the internet. And to have a space, because we are in the part of the world workforce that we are working with people on a deep, intimate level. And to minimize the amount of microaggressions or assumptions we have, that cultural humility piece is so big. And for other workforces like even like 911 operators, lawyers, teachers, et cetera, it's really important for there to be a space where you can be vulnerable and ask those questions. As someone who comes from a school with only 3 people of color in her graduating class, it's really important for me to have access to this and ask questions. And like Andrew was saying, I didn't think that DEIB was my place because I am white, heterosexual, female, and I figured they need a space where they don't have to deal with people that look like me. But I know that's not the concept of DEIB. I was just afraid to take that leap and take up space that wasn't mine. But I think that even just breaking that is so important because in a group of people that are from all different places, every single person is diverse. So I think that learning about like, what's your opinion on this without asking someone to speak for their entire culture is really important. And I think that DEIB opens the forum for that in a constructive and safe manner, whereas maybe going on the internet and asking Reddit might not have the same response.
Exactly. I think well said. I love that point, Stephanie, about you being a white cisgender female and thinking, this is not a space for me because I'm not a person of color. I might not have had the experiences that people of color had, so I don't need to talk. And exactly the opposite is what is true. That's what DEIB is. Yes, you have to talk. You have opinions, you have thoughts, you have experiences, you have space for learning. And that's what we're trying to achieve with this conversation. And I think so far it's going really well. I think you guys are making really, really good points. Mike, did you want to add to that? I can move on to the next question. Do you have any other thoughts about that?
I would just like to say it's the way we're looking at it now when it comes to companies. The days of companies being so one-sided is over. What I mean by that is now that you are seeing companies are evolving. So while as companies evolving, their workers and employees are also evolving. So it's different cultures are being mingled in and coming together. It's no longer do I, and I'm just saying, go to one company and you're just seeing all white males. It's now being all spread upon where it's women, it's men, it's all types of color and different types of cultures. And I'm like, I agree with everyone on the panel saying it's more or less of just learning different types of cultures, because now it's, instead of assuming and all these assumptions, you can have these conversations. It's nice to say, when something's going on in the world today, you can say, it's a way of understanding them more on a group based, or more of a one-to-one than me just saying, oh, that person doesn't feel it or that doesn't make sense. It's more of having those conversations to understand how that person is feeling and how it affects them, in their everyday process.
Yep, totally agree. So we kind of touched upon it, but what are the benefits to having a DEI be as an integral part of your company or institution? What do you guys see that's the important part of it? I think for me, it's having discussions. It's for me being able to focus on skills, as opposed to, are you a woman, are you black, are you white, kind of thing. Like, shift from that and focus on what skills do you have to offer. I don't care about the other piece. I want to know like what your experiences and skills you have to offer that would make our company stronger. Anybody can jump in.
So I know that we've talked about education and empathy and breaking down assumptions. I think that it's just important to have a space where you don't feel like you're going to be villainized for asking a question that you aren't sure about. There's a lot of places where you can't ask certain questions, but for someone to say, I'm setting aside time once a month for you to ask me that question, be vulnerable with me, let me help you learn, rather than being caught in a situation with a client where they're saying something and you have to rewrite the entire narrative before you can continue to help them, which I've been in. So I'd rather have the opportunity to learn in a proactive manner and by people who are also benefiting from that conversation, rather than keeping myself sheltered and hoping that I assumed correctly.
Right. I mean, we're in the business of mental health, and so we service everyone. And so I think, you touched upon it before, Stephanie, and I just want to reiterate it. Cultural humility. Cultural humility allows you to be in a space to ask questions of your colleagues, questions of your clients in respectful manner, to get educated, to get information. I think it's all part of it. And because we are clinicians, we need to be very mindful about having that understanding and being aware of who we are working with and who we are serving. So I think DEIB helps benefit our business, helps us to be better clinicians, helps us to be more aware. Anyone else want to add to that?
I can add to that. So I feel like when I think about this question, well, first, I agree with everything that's being said, but I also think about it from a company to employee or agency to employee outlook as well, in terms of, I feel like since I've been on the DEIB committee here, I've been able to see some of the ways that we're able to support our organization across the board, where we're able to support some of our coworkers with some of the support groups that we have going on within DEIB. And I feel like it's really beautiful to be able to see people say that they felt safe, that they felt comfortable in your workplace, right? Like I think
Right.
sometimes the workplace is like, okay, just gonna go to work today and then come home, right? And it's like it's not really the safest of spaces for everybody because you don't have those personal intimate connections all the time. And I think that's where we feel the most safe at. And so to see people be able to have that here at work and in the workplace is really important to me and a really beautiful thing. And I think that it creates a space where employees feel respected, they feel cared for. And I think a lot of places sometimes lack that, right? Like we see a really high turnover rate, especially in our field. And I
Mhm.
think that a lot of times employees just want to feel respected. They just want to feel like they're worth something to their employer, right? Like I don't want to feel like I'm just a person in a seat to make your organization, flourish or gain more money, right? Like I want to feel like you see me. I want to feel like you care about me the way I care about the mission of your organization. And I think DEIB is a really, really great way to be able to make that connection in between, like the CEOs or those who are really running things from the top down and those who are working from the bottom up. I think it's a really great place to actually connect that and bridge that gap.
Right. I think that's a beautiful thing because that was the mission of beginning DEI and then merging to DEIB because we wanted to, it's nice to look like you're diverse, like hiring and all of that. But for us, it was deeper. Like, how do we, like you said, really make those connections, really make a space, a workspace for people to really feel like they belong and they have a voice no matter who they are. No matter if they're a white male, no matter if they're a Black female, no matter if they're Arab, no matter if they're, Muslim, doesn't matter. Have the voice, and your voice matters, and that your contributions matter. Do you see any disadvantages with DEIB? Mike, what do you think about that? We talked about all the advantages. Do you see any disadvantages with continuing DEIB protocols, concepts?
I don't know if I see any true disadvantages of it.
Mhm.
I think the harm that comes about is just like we were talked about earlier about the assumptions of it's only isolated to one brand, one color, when it's not necessarily just isolated. It's more of, again, the advantages of it is going back to the advantages of it is the supportiveness from your company. So it's the company supporting you as an individual, based off of your culture, your background, your religion, and things of that nature. So it's hard just to pinpoint any disadvantages. I guess for me, and I guess again for me being a man of color, I more don't see the disadvantages because it's helped me out in branding and understanding, again, different cultures of ABH, and I can't really see anything wrong at this point, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Anything else? Stephanie, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Only that the naming convention kept me away for so long because diversity is that first word. And as a white person, you're taught that you're not diverse, even though that doesn't make sense. So
Right.
to hear diversity, you're thinking, oh, everyone else. So you're thinking if I'm more than half the pie chart, which is statistically not true, but that is what you're taught growing up, then this isn't for me. And whatever grievances they have, they're not going to feel like they're able to talk about that if I'm there, because they're going to be worried about offending me or something like that. Like we're trying to break the generational everything that we inherited. And
It's the boomers.
yeah, I was
You
going to say
gotta break
very
the boomers.
stereotypical of my millennial cohort. We're afraid
Uh-huh.
of making waves at all. So, but I'm glad that there is a space like this. As I said earlier, the only disadvantage I could really see is if there aren't ground rules set up that would prevent just bashing on other people and their experiences. But I think that ABH does a really good job of allowing everyone to be heard, but also moderating it in a way that the feelings are understood and the words are mellowed down so that everyone can provide empathy and without harm to each other.
Right. Just want to take a minute and share with you guys just the 4 causes. I was doing some research myself. 4 causes of DEI failure. This is from 360 Learning. And number 1 is too much emphasis on raising awareness. Number 2 is marginalized employees are put on the spot. Number 3 is lack of diversity in DEI. And then the 4th one is people set goals, but they don't establish, like you said, Stephanie, procedures, ground rules, policies. What do you all think about that? I think that's true. So I think when I was talking earlier about tweaking, these are the things you have to keep in mind as you continue to progress with your DEIB policies. It's not about putting people on the spot. It's not about, making people aware. People know. It's more about just come join and just share your thoughts and ideas so that we can make, our company stronger. And so, of course, we're heading into the final piece of our conversation today. But of course, ABH is definitely values DEIB concepts, principles. And I want to know what you all think as employees, as part of the company. Why? Why is that embraced so much here? And do you think other companies can learn from us?
Well, I think it's embraced heavily in ABH because, again, as you mentioned earlier, the background of ABH is you're dealing with so many facts of different cultures, religion, different people. Therapy is therapy, right? Meaning it's mental health. You're going to deal with clients on an everyday basis who may not look like you. So it's more in a sense of understanding and being, trained a little bit in the aspect of how can I reach out to said person. You never want to not help, because the key to ABH is all about helping. It's all about guiding. It's all about, massaging, maturing, and bringing them through a good passage. So we don't want to not allow that person, or, as a therapist, or you don't want to not allow to help out said client. But I think it's important because, again, it brings up these conversations that you normally don't have every day. So it gives you that period, that space, that opportunity to discuss the hard topics. Keep in mind, for me, when I started with ABH, and this is personal experiences, we were going through that, COVID, and then after the COVID stage, it was Black Lives Matters, right? So here we are in going through that walk of, you are hitting with a culture shock that there has to be, once this big event in your life takes place, you want to be able to address that, talk to, and be able to express how you feel in that moment based off of what's going on. And I feel that DEIB gives you that opportunity on all levels. And it's key that I had that opportunity to talk about how I feel going on with, what's affecting what's going on through the world.
Right. I mean, we had to, Andrea and Mike know, we had to rebrand our support group because our staff thought, oh, well, as Stephanie so eloquently indicated before, like, oh, this is just for, people of color or people on the DEI committee. But once we rebranded it and thought of more topics that would, hit everybody in the agency, it's just been much more fruitful because people now realize, oh, you sponsor it, but this support group is really for us. And so, learning, it's all about learning and growing. So I think that was a great lesson for us on the committee. Andrea, I'm going to pick on you because you're one of the newbies, new members to ABH, to the committee, to community schools. How do you feel ABH has embraced you as a company? Do you feel like it's hitting the important spots that you wanted in a workforce?
I definitely would say so. And it's funny that you said that because I was actually just thinking that, like, yeah, I really just joined ABH in like August of 2023. So I'm still relatively new. And I think one of the first things, and I think I mentioned it in my interview, I was like, just looking at the organization and doing my research, it seems like a really diverse place and a place that welcomes diversity and kind of really pulls that in and pulls it together. So no wonder I'm on the DEIB committee, right? But
yeah, you joined it really quick. And we welcomed you with open arms. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I was going to say. Like, I really felt so welcomed by my, community schools team, by even Vera, by you guys, by the DEIB committee. Like, I really do feel like I was welcomed with open arms, and just for being who I was, whether I was interested in the committee or not, I really felt like, wow, this is a really nice place to be. And these people have got something like really working well. And I think that in your original question, you mentioned like what could people learn from ABH? And obviously I'm a little biased because I work here, but I did just start. So I feel like that kind of, helps out in like being devil's advocate. But I feel like what ABH does well with DEIB is that we have a committee of people that actually care, and the agency itself is set up in a way where they're educated on the topic, and the people who are on the committee are educated and, like I said, passionate. And I think that sometimes it's really easy to just kind of create a DEIB committee to check off a box, right? But people know, they feel that, right? Like, and even as I mentioned in my interview, I felt like this was a really diverse place. I could tell that it wasn't just, okay, we're just checking off a box, right? And so I think that employees really feel that, and people looking at organizations really feel that and can know and kind of sense when you're really just doing it just to do it. And a lot of times when you do that, you don't come from that educational perspective. You don't actually do the work to make sure that you're educated. And I think that can kind of be a drawback sometimes, because how do you support a group of people without knowing how to support them, right? Without knowing why they need the support. And so I think that that's something that ABH does really well that other people could learn from as well, is just educating themselves on the topic and then creating the committee and choosing people that you really feel are actually passionate about the topic.
I love that. I mean, thank you for that, because you were new and I picked on you on purpose because you hadn't been here long. Like, Mike's an OG. And in the end, I'm going to speak on Stephanie, because Stephanie's not even on the committee, but she's more than welcome to join. But I wanted her to come on because she is a very good clinician here in the Greenbelt site. And just, when we were just chatting about it a while ago, and she was thinking that, oh, well, it's just not a space for me, even though I have ideas and thoughts. And we were like, no, you got to come and share your ideas and thoughts. But yes, we are a passionate group. Yes, we do our homework. We educate ourselves. Yes, we survey our staff every year to figure out what topics are important to them. And, even with the one or two criticisms we may get, we address those criticisms, like why does this person feel like this isn't important and I want to change that? Or why does this person feel like this doesn't apply to me? I want to change that. And so as a group, we have been able to do that. And I think much success through our support groups that we're having. So we're going to wrap it up. And Stephanie, I'm just going to let you have the final words. If you have anything that you want to share else with the audience about DEIB at ABH and, how it's making you feel as a clinician.
Okay. Yeah, I think I always enjoy these sort of educational talks. I think that my last job, I would have benefited from this. I was in foster care, and the placement coordinator was an African-American female, and we shared an office, and we got along really, really well. And I remember when the Black Lives Movement started off, my husband and I were livid about it. My partner is also a white heterosexual male, as we've been talking. And she asked me this question, why do you care so much? And I remember I didn't know how to answer that. It's like asking, why do you care about someone's well-being? And it makes sense that I'm in the mental health field because that question was absurd to me. And it's nice to be in an environment where that question doesn't have to be asked. And I don't have to contemplate why did that question exist at all, because that's a lot to unpack. So having this space where I can voice sympathy as an ally or whatever it needs to be, I like that I won't be questioned. Am I just putting on a front? That kind of thing, because everyone at DEIB, from what I can tell, is self-selected, be there. And it's kind of like hiring for movies nowadays. You're not hiring to the book description, you're hiring to what fits the role. No matter what they look like, no matter their background, you're there for the energy, you're there for the spirit. And I like that about our DEIB group, is that the spirit is authentic. And that is something that I can definitely hop on board with, regardless of if I look the same or different from the people there.
Right. I mean, the proof is in the pudding, where we still, like I said, Mike's one of our OG members. But at the same time, we recognize like new members, younger members. I mean, all of it is so important to make for a successful DEIB committee. So, any other final words before we wrap up? I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules to have this talk with me on the panel to kind of unpack DEIB, and hopefully with our viewers, our audience watching this, they'll get some insight and either come to ABH because we are a company that walks the talk, or at least help their companies that they're in to take a different look at DEIB and pay attention to those pitfalls that can get you in trouble with DEIB, but at the same time just value it. It's so important to keep the work going. All right. Well, everyone, this is our latest ABH Table Talk. Please subscribe and like, and stay tuned for our next Table Talk. And I will see all of you in the near future. Bye. Okay. I'll stop recording. Okay, stop.